Customs regulations for cannabis and cannabis products. Medical cannabis is being legalized in more and more countries. Apart from domestic consumption, the export and import of cannabis products are increasing. However, since this is still a fairly new commodity in legal international trade, each country is updating their laws and regulations. Even within the EU, the regulations differ from country to country, and in the US, they even differ from state to state. This presentation is taking a snapshot of the current situation about import and export requirements in several countries in the world. This update on the situation also takes a look at the future. Supply chain consultant, lecturer and researcher, University of the Thai Chamber of Commerce, from Germany, Dr. Thomas E. Fernandez.
Sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? All right. Okay. So then I will talk about medical cannabis and the import and export of the same in several countries around the world. The purpose of this presentation is to give you a general overview about the customs requirements. And for those who have seen my presentation already last year, this is an update on what has changed in the meantime. You have heard a lot already in this conference about the legal requirements. I'm not talking about the legal requirements, even though I touch it. Customs always has to do with legal requirements also. But I am concentrating on customs regulations. First of all, what is a customs department? Every shipment of goods that crosses international borders must be declared to customs. It's very much when you travel and you arrive in a country, you have to show your passport to the immigration officer. The government wants to know who is arriving in this country and from where. Same when you leave a country, you have to show your passport because the government wants to know who's leaving to where. With goods, it's the same thing. Any goods traded across countries must be declared to the government. And for goods, it's not the immigration department, it's the customs department. Just another department, and is under the Ministry of Finance, whereas the immigration department is usually under the Ministry of Interior, but all this, the ministry depends on country to country. The customs department will collect import and export duties and taxes. This is what we know them for, but they have a lot of other tasks as well. For example, they will check whether any required licenses are in place. The customs department will not issue licenses. Yeah, we come to that. Different other government departments will issue the licenses. The customs department will only check whether they are in place. Then we have to pay import duties, in some cases export duties. And how is that organized? Rather than everybody writing what exactly they are importing, there is a coding system. It's called the HS code, the Harmonized Systems, HS Harmonized Systems Code. Full name is the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System. And we come to the description in a moment. This is a 6-digit code number for every good that can be traded. Now, these 6 digits, they are harmonized across the world. The numbers are maintained by the World Customs Organization, which is a UN agency, and the customs department of most countries, I think 183 countries, are members in the World Customs Organization, and they set the codes. Cannabis and cannabis products have several HS codes. I come to that in the next slides. It depends on the classification, exactly what part of the plant is it, what is it being used for, and we will see that. The difficulty here is that the import and export licenses depend on the HS code used. For research, I need another license than for medical imports. We will see some examples in a moment. And now what is happening now, the new HS codes 2022 become effective on 1st of January next year. Up to now, we are using the current HS codes from 2017. Here are some examples of HS codes. We have the difference between hemp and cannabis. What is hemp? Hemp is the cannabis plant. Okay, 5302 mentions the true hemp, raw or processed but not spun. This is a copy and paste from the regulation, right? Then here it's more detailed. Yeah, from the chapter to the detailed here, raw or retted but not spun, and here processed rather than retted but not spun, and so forth. And then under 530310, we have jute and other textile fibers, excluding hemp. Okay, so we have to be very careful. In some codes, something is excluded. In some codes, we have to use that code. It's mentioned specifically. Here are more examples. This I just copied from the Canada website, where hemp can be under 0602, sorry, medical cannabis, not hemp, live plants. Okay, so and here it says other government departments requirements. You need these different certificates and licenses from this is Canada Food, the Canada equivalent of the FDA. Now, cannabis seeds for sowing is 1209.99, then cannabis plants and herbs 1211.90. So you have to really use an expert for this classification. It can get very, very complicated. You see here that there are more than 6 codes. In fact, there are 10 codes in this example. The EU digits. The EU uses 11 digits. That's up to every country how many digits they want to use, but the first 6 are harmonized among all countries in the world. Here's some more, 1302 for resin, oil extracts, also 1302, but the last 2 digits are different, and medicaments for retail sale, 3004, right? Totally different code again. Yeah, and again, you need different licenses. Then we have different types of cannabis. Many participants know more about this than I do, but from the customs perspective, there is mostly no difference. What kind of cannabis is this? They look at the percentage of THC. For medical cannabis, THC content must usually not exceed 0.2% or 0.3%. There are exceptions, 0.5% in Paraguay, 1% in Peru and Uruguay. So there is no international norm. You have to look at each country where you are at the moment. And I will have some examples for you in this presentation. Based is this all, we heard this already in other presentations, on the Single Convention of 1961. Those were other times. On 2nd December 2020, so this is an update, the UN voted on the recognition of medicinal and therapeutic potential of cannabis and urged to remove cannabis. So this is now up to the member countries to implement that. Expect that to take some time. Imports of oil to Germany. This is just to show, just a snapshot, an example that the whole market is increasing. More and more demand is there. And this is an issue of more and more economic importance for the countries. Legal status, just a brief overview. This here was the map I presented last year. This is the map I'm presenting today. We see there was no difference in Africa, sorry, in Asia and Australia, Oceania. So you don't see that. What you see here is in Africa. Interesting enough, Morocco, in the meantime, recognizes cannabis, medical cannabis is authorized by a physician. So that's the first step. The big change we have, of course, in the United States. This was last year, the election had just taken place. And here we see many, many countries are blue in addition in this area, and then here in the northeast. Now let's talk about some specific countries. In the European Union, any food that contains CBD must comply with food legislation. Okay, and this is where the term novel foods, we already heard the term novel foods today in presentations, comes in. I'm not sure it's really so new, the whole idea, but okay, let them use that term. The Court of Justice of the EU found that CBD is not expressly included in whatever. This was a ruling from November 2020. So this is also new. This is going into the right direction. Yeah, we are softening this up a bit. GMP licenses are required. We had, for example, a mutual recognition agreement already with the EU and Australia. So if something is produced containing CBD is produced in Australia, then it can be imported into the EU if the Australian manufacturer has the GMP license, and a lot of other licenses are required. But new now also Canada, new mutual recognition agreement. So everything is going into the right direction. The EU uses a level of up to 0.2% to distinguish hemp from a narcotic, right? Hemp is legal, but they can be restricted by other member countries. They can set a lower threshold again. There is still no harmonized EU law on cannabis use. So we have a patchwork of import and export regulations. Whether you want to import into this EU country or another EU country has different regulations, which is remarkable for the EU. As an example, we will start with Germany. Germany has legalized medical cannabis already in 2017, but you need licenses over licenses. I just bring here a sample of applicable laws to just show how German this is. We had general elections in September this year, and we don't have a new government yet, but there is a big chance that these three parties, SPD, FDP, and Greens, they form a coalition government, and all three parties say they want to legalize recreational use of cannabis. Yeah, the new government is expected to form in the first week of December. That does not mean that the laws will be changed within the same week. Or I believe we will still have some time to wait, but again, we are going into the right direction. In Spain, sale and importation of any quantity of cannabis is a criminal offense. If you've ever been to Spain, especially to southern Spain, you wouldn't know that, right? An export license is not required for the non-narcotic parts of the plant. So there are details which part of the cannabis plant you're actually allowed to export. Now, the export licenses have been issued to 11 cultivators and 2 manufacturers. This is up from 3 in the last year, right? In the UK, we just heard about the UK. You also have novel food, yeah, and cannabis still classified in the drugs legislation. And we can see here import and export is possible. Several importers have been licensed, but we have also just heard a moment ago that many licenses have been not issued, and we don't know whether they have been rejected or not. Anyway, it's also difficult to get the licenses, but licenses have been issued. For the United States, the 2018 Farm Bill is the important thing that removed hemp from the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA schedule of controlled substances. This is significant because that means that the federal government does not go against cannabis anymore. They have a threshold of 0.3% THC, that is higher than Europe with 0.2%, but most countries, as I said, are in this range. The US law, now this makes it a little bit complicated. It distinguishes between different CBD, even though CBD is CBD. Never mind whether it comes from this plant or that plant, but they look at whether it was derived from hemp or from marijuana, which is actually a term we don't use anymore. But this is meant with a cannabis plant that has a THC content that makes it fall under narcotics. The legal status of CBD is in flux. The state level laws are a patchwork. You saw the graphic just a few moments ago. Oh, I have a better graphic for you. Sorry, that was a wrong click. Yeah. CBD products can be imported to US states. I say to states, not to the country as such, because some states allow it, some states do not allow it. THC level, some states allow 0%. Right, so you have to make sure that what state are you importing to. Here, this is the headline from April this year from the Rio Times in Brazil. Colombia has made first legal shipment of cannabis to the United States. Wow, this is news. Cross-state transport within the US can be problematic because different regulations exist in different states. So here we have the patchwork again. You see some of the light green countries allowing medical marijuana now are dark green, including recreational. But what is more important for us here, that the number of states that have a greenish color has increased. Canada takes CBD as a controlled substance. Again, we have 0.3% THC content for the license, must be below, otherwise there are problems, and more regulations apply. Import and export is possible. In Australia, medicinal cannabis, so some countries use the term medical cannabis. Other countries use the term medicinal cannabis, right? For our purposes with customs, it does not matter which word we use, right? Interesting here, export of medicinal cannabis is allowed as long as domestic supply is not affected. There must be enough domestic supply, right? They need it, yeah? Okay, there are more regulations, licenses, permits, and so forth, right? Here we have the approved licenses. This goes up to May 20, and these are new licenses. You want the total licenses, you have to stack all these bars on top of each other. South Africa is an interesting country because the packages must contain a maximum daily dose of 20 milligrams. So if the package is bigger than 20 milligrams, then they allow 0.001% of THC and 0.0075% of CBD. But if the package is no more than 20 milligrams, then they also agree to 0.2% or 0.1% depending. The lawyer will tell you. Okay, there are more regulations that we will skip. China is the largest producer of hemp, but only in 3 provinces. No more than 0.3% THC should be contained in CBD oils. They use cosmetics, serums, creams, not for food. Yeah, and import of cannabis is not allowed according to the customs order, but an import license can be applied for. So you see, you have to contact a lawyer for these details. It's really interesting. Thailand is the first country in Southeast Asia to legalize medical cannabis, and progress has been made since last year. So that they have agreed on 0.2%. And then it's not in the narcotics list anymore. And there are many other regulations that have been issued in the meantime since the last year. Thai FTA started accepting licenses, but I couldn't find anywhere whether any have been issued. But anyway, it's there now. For producing, selling, owning cannabis and hemp, I know at least one person who says he has the license and sells to hospitals. Import is still limited to research and government agencies. So the international trade of medical cannabis is increasing around the world. I see positive signs. Yeah, if we look at the development from last year to this year, we have seen that regulations have been eased. Yeah, it's still not finished. This situation is currently in flux. Last year, I prepared my presentation a month before the day of the presentation. It was outdated by that time. Today, I just finished it up yesterday. Right? So the situation is still changing. And what we need to keep in mind, most countries use 0.2 or 0.3% THC level for medical cannabis. Right. If there are any more questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.